Greetings. Continuing. The next question. What about obstacles in life? Such as, I don't know, a criminal record. No. The answer given is, okay, let's follow through with the example you've asked about. Let's just take it as an example to make a more general point. Let's say you have the criminal record. Before you had the record, you had some starting point from which you would depart toward any venture in life. Okay, you had a point of departure before the criminal record. Well, that point of departure, I'm sure at that time, at any time before you had a criminal record, and you from some given starting point were embarking on anything, you had limitations. You had limitations, right? Now, looking back, now let's say you have a criminal record, you see that back then you had opportunity that you don't have now. Some opportunities, let's say, that you don't have now. Although limitations did exist then too. Well, now you have a new starting point. It's different. It has its opportunities. There are still opportunities, just like your old starting point had, just not exactly the same ones. Okay? There are different limitations too. Some having to do with the criminal record. Yeah. You may have had some limitations before that you no longer have. So, it's a new starting point. It's a different starting point. Different opportunities, probably. A different set of opportunities. Different set of limitations. Both of which have to do with the criminal record. But not all do. Let me set up something here to help make a point about this. How to think about it. How to think about obstacles versus opportunities. Okay? Some people say, I'm bored. I'm so bored. This is boring. I really feel bored. Well, a good response to that is, oh? I thought that what you're referring to as boredom was really kind of like inner peace. Implying, that there's a misinterpretation of the situation. It's being misinterpreted as boredom. Such that in that misinterpretation, the boredom, or the situation that is taken to be a boring situation, there's really built right into that situation the other way to interpret it. Perhaps a more accurate one. That there's really a feeling of peace, where the situation involves peacefulness. It's built right in. And that feeling of boredom is a way to get to it. Or it's pointing right at it. It's the misinterpretation of the more true state of affairs, let's say. The more true state of affairs being that it's peaceful. Kind of locked right into the boredom. Now, similarly, each apparent obstacle, see here, obstacle compares to boredom. Compares with boredom. Whereas opportunity compares with peacefulness, or peace. Okay. Each apparent obstacle has locked right into it a new take on opportunity. Many so-called problems have their solutions built right into them, such that Recognizing the solution, in a sense, dissolves the notion that there was a problem in the first place. Just that it wasn't, in the end, retrospect may indicate that there really wasn't a problem, such that there really was not a solution. And what turns out to have been, what was at first taken to be the solution to the problem, just turns out to be the situation that was there. It just needed to be seen and grabbed onto and moved forward with. Okay? Similarly, with obstacles and their inherent opportunities. This is slightly different than the sometimes given advice to see obstacles as opportunities, or try to figure out an opportunity about it, or look on the bright side, those kinds of things. This is slightly different than that. Some people say, I have too much distraction and I cannot focus. I can't focus. Too much distraction. I say, I take it that you're indicating that there's an obstacle here? That there's an obstacle? You're facing an obstacle? That there's a problem? You're telling me about a problem? I don't see the problem. I know what you're getting at. But I want you to look at it through my eyes here. I want you to try to see it my way. I'm not recognizing a problem. What I'm recognizing is that, given what you just said, you're in a perfect situation for practicing attention control. That's what you're telling me. That's what I'm getting out of this. You're saying, hey, I'm in a perfect situation for practicing attention control today. The words I'm hearing are, I have too much distraction and I can't focus. But what I'm getting out of that is that you are in a perfect situation for practicing attention control. That's an opportunity. Perfect one. So I would continue to say to this person, you didn't just now identify a problem. You identified an opportunity that's built right into your situation. This is the kind of thing that I am saying here. This is slightly different than looking on the bright side or trying to turn an obstacle into an opportunity or trying to find the good thing in it. No, I'm saying that the thing that is being taken to be an obstacle or a problem really is the opportunity itself. Built right into it. If you're taking something to be a problem or you're taking something to be an obstacle, that's drawing your attention to an opportunity. You don't have to think in terms of problem or obstacle to see the opportunity or to turn a thing into an opportunity. No. If something is attracting your attention and your normal thinking, your habitual thinking says, here's a problem, stop right then. Because any further thinking about problem will blind you from seeing the solution, or blind you from just seeing the course of action to take. Leave solution out of it. If you're going to leave problem out of it, you have to leave the idea of solution out too. There's a slight difference here, you see. And I think that it is very clearly brought forth, or more clearly brought forth, in my example. I have too much distraction and I can't focus. Well, no, wait a minute. What I'm hearing you say is that you're in a perfect situation to practice attention control. See, there was no problem there. Therefore, perfect situation for practicing attention control isn't even a solution. It's just an accurate interpretation of the situation. So now, okay. Enough said about that, and I'm not with that suggesting, with any of this suggesting, that you now put energy into trying to figure out some opportunity inherent in having a criminal record. No, Remember, that was your example, and I was pursuing it to make a more general point. The more general point is something useful here that happened to come to my mind when you mentioned your record and its limiting factor, some useful point of view in general to take about things perceived as obstacles and problems. Now, I'm not trying to be flowery or oversimplify or sugarcoat anything about life here. Please understand that as well. There are some cases in which applying this recommended point of view or this habit of thought about events in life, there are some situations in which it's rather hard to apply it just straightforwardly, like I'm saying. Sometimes you kind of have to meet the old problem obstacle perspective on affairs halfway with what I'm proposing. Okay? I understand that. I do understand that. This is a way to think about obstacles and problems that, in the least, brings us halfway to what to do. That's constructive, right from the start, without much further thought about it. Okay. That's what I have to say right here, very preliminarily, in our preliminary preparatory discussion here about life obstacles. I appreciate you having asked. It's a good question. The next question is, can you tell me about the effects of stimulant or narcotic abuse? And yes, I can. I want to know whether you know about your energy or your ethereal body and about your astral body. That's my answer to the question, in a nutshell. But to say more, not only do such chemicals damage your central nervous system, your CNS, which includes your brain, they also damage your ethereal body and your astral body. These chemicals have ethereal and astral effects, largely because they do have ethereal and astral components, just as do you. Their astral components affect your astral body, and their ethereal components affect your ethereal body, and their physical components affect your physical body. And there's more going on than that, too. That's just a simple way to put it. I point this out only to help you become aware of the facts of the case. Nothing else. Not wagging a finger at you or even assuming anything. All you asked me was if I can tell you about the effects. The damage is such that it gets in the way of the sorts of progress towards which you strive here with me. Whether you were, telling me that you strive, which we haven't really begun to work on yet, but we are getting some good information laid out here so that you have an understanding of how we will be interacting. Our rapport, how it works, how this is it developing. Okay? Now, I put this out only to help you become aware of the facts of the case. For the damage of such substance is such that it gets in the way of the sorts of progress towards which you strive. Many things, in fact, get in the way. Chemicals in our drinking water, such as sodium fluoride, get in the way. Television, good old TV, gets in the way. In a rather big way. Gets in the way in a big way. Microwaves get in the way. So much microwave activity going on these days. We practically forgot about that. It's just the sources of microwave emanation are just everywhere. All over the place. All over the place. Kind of hard to think of places where it's not happening. I mean, geez, you might go out in the middle of the jungle somewhere and find some little hut that has a microwave oven in it. And some native walking around in a loincloth talking on his cell phone. go to one of the Caribbean islands and look up on the top of a mountain there, and oh, there's a microwave antenna, a tower, with all these microwave panels on it, looking completely alien, by the way. Anyway, chemtrail fallout gets in the way, very big time. Most contemporary music gets in the way. On and on the list goes. Now, when I say gets in the way about any of these things, I'm not putting that lightly. Well, I propose to you that it's a good idea to avoid volitionally adding to the list with stimulants and narcotics and the like. Don't you think it's a good idea to avoid volitionally adding to the list? I mean, just saying, well, there's all this other stuff, good grief, we all got to go someday, If one thing doesn't get you, the other will. Anybody who says any silly thing like that and uses that as an excuse to go ahead and volitionally add to the list in their life is a damn fool. Well, certainly isn't somebody who would be considering, I think. Most likely is not somebody who would be actually considering personal evolvement training. So, you, in this dialogue exchange with me, probably won't be saying anything like that, right? Next question. What if I am currently detoxing from drugs while I'm deciding on your program? Very good question. And what I have to say about that is that in addition to this other preparation material I'm giving you, that I am about to give you or have given you right now, considerations and so forth, I also that I've given you to help you decide whether you are best adapted. Let me start this over. In addition to the other preparation material I give you to help us decide whether you are best adapted right now for my full-blown comprehensive program, I also recommend that you drink only steam distilled water during this time. Steam distilled water. Up to a gallon of it a day. So this will be about 3 weeks of drinking distilled water up to a gallon a day. And no other water. It's less than $1 a gallon in most stores. You can find it in the water section. And if you do that, please be apprised that if you do feel a little woozy from it, or you might get some zits or whatever, these are the results of your body cleansing due to the distilled water. The thing about distilled water is this: it's pure water. It's pure H2O. It's H2O plus nothing. So, it easily latches onto impurities. That's one of the things it really likes to do. And these impurities include unusable minerals. Minerals that are unusable by our bodies. And we get them, that we get from such things as other water. And this pure water cleans those things out of our bodies. All of nature lives on distilled water. Evaporation, which we've all heard of, right? And condensation, which we've all heard of, natural processes, right? Our atmosphere does them. The earth does these things, right? Well, evaporation plus condensation equals distilled water. But once that distilled water has run over rocks, filtered down through things, it picks up minerals and other stuff. Just like it will do in your body. Put distilled water in your body and it will do that. These minerals that it will pick up in your body are not usable by your body. They just build up in there. And like I said, will come from other water that's loaded with them. They'll build up in your body and clog everything, causing stones, deposits, and whatnot. Alright? Usable minerals minerals that are usable by our bodies come from vegetables and fruits, not from water. And those usable minerals go into our cells and get connected to things and are not dislodged and carried out by pure water. So it would be a shame if you can't get distilled water. But if distilled water is unavailable to you, don't worry. For there's something else you can do too. It has to do with water. Whether or not you have distilled water, you can do this. If you do have it, do this. If you don't, do this. Be apprised that all water is mentally programmable. And I suggest that pure water, that is distilled water, just H2O, is the most programmable, easily programmable water of all. So even if you don't have distilled water, you can still put it into a container and write love on the container and mean it when you do it. And let it sit for 24 hours before you drink it. Water that is in a container that has love written on it molecularly behaves differently than water would otherwise, or than water does otherwise. The molecules line up almost like molecules in a crystal, okay, and move about very calmly, more calmly than otherwise. The water is reacting in a constructive, calming, harmonious manner to the word love which you've written on the container, which in turn means that your body then, which is largely water, right, will respond back to it then when you ingest it. You started the cycle, and it ends back up with you. You did something mentally, and it comes back and affects you physically and mentally. Physically, because you're physically ingesting it. Mentally, because the change that's taken place due to mental action on both your part and the water's. Okay. You can still do this with whatever water you have, even if you can't get the distilled water. Write the word love on your containers and mean it. Now, all of this that's been talked about here is quite real stuff. It's not idle fancy. Nor is it left brain analysis. It is the start of experience with the real thing. The next question is, okay, what about personal rituals, like rituals, little magical rituals, little spells, whatever, little rituals to aid me in the manifestation of my personal desires right now? What about things like that? We'll take up with the answer to that in the next video. Be well.